So my video is about ski jumping, and although ski jumping is pretty simple, I'm going to give a quick rundown of a few defining features just so you can know more about it. So when they're going down the ramp, their skis are in like narrow corridors. Think of like a Hot Wheels car like on a track. And so if that car kind of bumps up against the edges of the track, it's going to go slower. So just like here, if the skis, hit the sides of the tracks, they'll go slower and they won't get as much speed jumping off. So you should try to keep your skis as straight as possible. So when you jump off, you can get as much distance as possible. Usually when they're going down this ramp, they can hit like 60 miles per hour, so it's super fast. They fly through the air for like 5 to 7 seconds, and then however far they get on the hill, that's how many points they get. So there's like a green line. If they cross this green line, they get 60 points. If you get farther or shorter from the line, you'll get points added or subtracted. And then you can also get 20 points from like your style. And so this is like what your jump looks like, how you're flying through the air. And there's a few judges that will like reward you in style points. Here's a video of ski jumping just so you can like see what it looks like. It's super short.
Right, that from his fourth place finishes in the individual competition and the team competition at the Youth Olympic Winter Games in Lausanne 2 years ago. Good distance.
So I think the big question I kind of came up with after watching ski jumping so much is how, when they're jumping from such high distances and they're in the air for so long, are they not on impact immediately hurting their legs? How are they not breaking, the bones in their feet or hurting their knees? How are they not immediately doing that? And so that's my big question I'm going to be answering in this project. So I think to answer this question of how they don't immediately hurt their legs when they hit the ground, we kind of need to understand how an object travels in motion through the air. So every object, when it's thrown, like let's say a ball, has a certain parabolic trajectory that it follows in until it hits the ground. Now this can fluctuate depending on the starting point or how hard I were to throw the ball or the angle I throw it at, but in the end it does form a parabolic trajectory. So now think of like a skier. Instead of the ball, the skier is the one that's in motion, and the run-in, the ramp going down, that is kind of like throwing the skier into the air. So while the skier is now in the air, it has a parabolic trajectory. Now the key to them not hurting their legs when they fall is the hill. So when they're in this parabolic trajectory and they start to get toward the hill is in the exact same angle as the skier. So that makes it so when they hit the hill, it has a much slower change in momentum so that they don't hurt their legs when they hit the ground. So I know this is still kind of hard to understand, so I think a really good example of this kind of idea of like the hill slowing down your momentum is kind of like when you're a kid and you're on a slip and slide. So like if I'm a kid and I jump on the slip and slide, my angle is going to be the same when I hit the hill. The angle of my body is going to be the same. So instead of me just jumping face first onto the ground, now I'm jumping on a hill that will slowly or have a more gentle change in momentum, so I won't hurt myself when I hit the ground. I'm going to show a video of just like someone on a slip and slide just to show that they don't get hurt when they're like running and jumping face first onto the ground. Yeah, so kind of here you can see like the same thing. Like, of course it would hurt to jump face first just onto the ground, but because their trajectory is lined up with the angle of the hill, they're completely fine. So this year I kind of focused in on the Nordic Combined, which is basically ski jumping plus cross-country skiing. And historically the sport has been dominated by Nordic countries, but I was excited to see the US as underdogs if they were able to get any medals from this. And the main person I was watching was Ben Loomis, who's like one of the best US Nordic Combined athletes, but sadly this year he only placed 15th, and the final for this event happened on February 9th. So while researching, I found a few other things that were pretty interesting to me, and I thought I'd mention them at the end just because they don't relate to my question or the people I was following, but I still think they're interesting pertaining to the sport. So first of all, when US Olympic athletes practice, they don't actually practice in the snow. So the ramp they go down is completely plastic, and they sprinkle water on the ramp so they're still able to reach really high speeds. And then when they jump off the ramp and start to land onto the hill is completely grass. There is no snow on it, but they're still able to compete in their sport, which I thought was really interesting. And even though the sport was started in like colder regions, like only in the winter, they're now able to practice all year round, anywhere they want, because of like the kind of innovation we've been able to create. Second, when I was watching a video about U.S. Olympic athletes, there were 12-year-old kids that were practicing with them. And so I thought it was really interesting that like there's no real like different jumps to do because of your age. There's only like one standard. And I think it'll be interesting in the future to see these kids that have been practicing since they were 12 years old, how they do in the Nordic combined. And then finally, I don't know if you noticed it, but when the ski jumpers do their jump, they put their skis into like a V shape while they're flying through the air. And this is kind of to get more lift so that they're able to go farther distance. And although this really helps them, it wasn't always used. And remember, I was talking about style points. So when this first got implemented, the skiers that would use the V formation would actually get points deducted from their style points because they did not have their skis straight together. They had them in a V shape. But even though they got so many points deducted because they didn't have their skis in the right formation, they were able to make up lots of that points because of the distance they were able to travel. So those were three things that didn't relate as much to the question or the people I was watching during the Olympics, but I thought it was really interesting when I was researching. So I thought I'd include it at the end.